Hey guys, Molly Pittman back here, and in this video, we're gonna talk about paid traffic, the what and the why. So this course is called Paid Traffic Mastery. Paid traffic is a term that we use to talk about buying ads on Facebook, Google, YouTube, and around the web, right? I also use the term media buyer, which is what we call ourselves, right? The people that are actually taking this action. So just so you know, I'm gonna use both of those terms, and I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. But when it comes to paid traffic, I want you to think about it like a road. A pretty simple analogy, right? There are businesses out in the world who are selling products and services and giving value and producing content. They have a message that they want to get out into the world. But sometimes that can be tough, right? We hear the quote all the time, build it and they will come. That's not always true. Unfortunately, I wish it was. So think about paid traffic as the road that allows you to take a product or service or a message and put it in front of the right audience, right? It's really, really simple. Paid traffic is one of the last steps in a marketing campaign because you have to build something first, right? You have to build an offer. And paid traffic is simply the act of putting that offer in front of the right people. So think of yourself as the connector, right? You are the road that gets eyeballs in front of products and services. Of course, there are main platforms that we're going to talk about throughout this course, right? And I call these the big three. We'll go more in depth in module 2. But as I said in the last video, we're really going to be talking about Facebook, YouTube, and Google in this course. And the reason for that is they're really the biggest and, in my opinion, the best platforms to buy media on in 2018 because these platforms are where humans are spending time. Right? So throughout this course, remember, everything I say matters not because we as marketers got to decide that Facebook ads were where it's going to be, right? Or that Google is going to be the platform to buy media. The reason that these platforms work is because this is where people are hanging out. Right? Your grandma, your mom, your cousin, right? They're hanging out on one, if not all three of these platforms. So our job as marketers is to have the conversation in the place that our people want to have the conversation, right? We don't get to just decide Facebook ads work. They work because that's where our market's hanging out and because we are darn good marketers, right? So our job is to get in front of the market of whatever business you're working on through channels like Facebook, Google, and YouTube. Now, I quickly want to talk about the difference between organic and paid traffic and how they're very different because our job as a media buyer is very different from the job of a social media manager, right? That's posting on Facebook, trying to get that free traffic. And I want to make sure that this makes sense before we move on. So think about paid traffic as a water hose, right? It's something that you can turn on, right? When you want more of it, you can literally go get it, right? We're going to talk about the idea of the traffic store in the next module, but that's a huge benefit of paid traffic. You are in control. You can turn it off and on whenever you please. Another thing to note about paid traffic is that you have control in terms of where you are sending that traffic, right? So we set up a Facebook ad. We can change the URL and direct that traffic to wherever we would like. And we have full control of that at all times. But you have to pay for it, right? As most things are nowadays, right? You have to pay for paid traffic. But if you know how to acquire customers at break even to grow a business, paying for traffic shouldn't be a scary thing or shouldn't be a bad thing, right? Our goal as a media buyer is to be able to buy as much traffic as we can because it means that our campaigns are working, right? If we're breaking even or we're making money, we can then buy more traffic to further scale the company. So just a few things to note about paid traffic. And then when it comes to organic traffic, so paid traffic's the hose, right? Turn it on, you're like, woo! And you can turn it off at any point, usually, unless it's broken. And then you have organic traffic, which to me is more like rain, right? You're relying on good old Mother Nature. So you aren't sure when the traffic will come or how consistently, right? And most businesses these days are getting organic traffic from, Google search, right? So people searching different terms on Google and then visiting their site. Or, as I mentioned earlier, from platforms like Instagram or Facebook, just posting on the business page and trying to reach more people for free. It's great because it's free, but like I said, you aren't in control, right? If Google makes an update, you may no longer get that free traffic. As Facebook makes an update, like they do all the time, it might affect the reach of your page, and you just don't have control, right? Another thing to keep in mind is you can't stop someone else from shutting off that traffic, right? As we spoke to a minute ago, if Facebook or Google makes a change, you don't really have control over what's happening. And in the same vein, you don't always have control of where the traffic is going, right? You can't just call up Google and say, hey, right now, one of my blog posts is ranking for how to make my dog sit. Can we change that URL instead of going to a blog post? I love to go to a product page so they actually buy something, right? You can't do that. We don't have control with organic traffic. But if you have it, be thankful. It's a wonderful thing. And we can use paid traffic to retarget that organic traffic and to further monetize it if that is something that you have in your business. So you understand what paid traffic is. You understand the difference between paid traffic and organic traffic. But I quickly want to talk about who we are, right? Digital media buyers. And this is something that I've started to talk about more to groups of people. And I love it because as the digital age continues, there are more of us, right? There are more digital media buyers because there is a need. And this is not a term that's been around for very long, right? So I think it's really important to understand not just what your role is, but what type of person is a digital media buyer? What do they do and how do they think? Who are we, right, as digital media buyers? And I wanted to show you this because I Googled digital media buyer, I Googled media buyer, and there aren't a lot of definitions out there yet, right? This is how new this is. But quickly from this company, Diligent, it says, since the onset of the digital transformation, the role of digital media buyer has been one of the most in-demand jobs in the advertising industry. True. Although digital media buying in and of itself is nothing new, it's a profession that's constantly adapting to new digital channels, technologies, platforms. True. As a key liaison between agencies and advertisers, digital media buyers support in the creation and implementation of advertising campaigns for different brands. This is something that isn't always true, right? And I wanted to point this out because traditionally, companies bought media, print ads, radio, TV, through an agency, right? So you hire an agency, and as they say, they work as the liaison to make sure these media buys are placed. That is not the case anymore. That still exists, but we've opened up a whole new realm of digital media buyers that work for a company, right? This is a full-time job now. This isn't just agency work where you act as a liaison between the business and the advertising platform. This is a job that you can be hired as a freelancer. You can work full-time for a company. So this is really evolving as the need is evolving for more digital media buyers. And then they go on to say, although digital media buyers may be involved in many decisions made throughout the campaign planning process, the most important decisions lie in determining which online media channels and what tactics will yield the greatest reach and be most effective in achieving campaign goals. So Lots of kind of big words. I think this definition's okay, but it's kind of poopy, right? It just doesn't really speak to what we do, because I think what we do is a really special thing in a business. For me, a media buyer aggregates and purchases attention, right? A media buyer aggregates and purchases attention. Media buyers connect consumers with brands that may be of service or interest to their life, right? This is the Molly Pittman definition, and I think it's a lot more accurate. And notice that I didn't put anything in here about generating new customers, ROI, leads. We'll talk all about performance metrics, but if there's one thing I can teach you that I've learned over the past 7 years, it's that as a media buyer, really what we're doing is connecting people with things that they like, right? And if the product or service isn't something that the market's interested in, or if you're showing that product or service to the wrong market, this isn't gonna work, right? It doesn't matter how many buttons you press inside of Facebook, or what optimization button you click, or how big your budget is, or what placements you're using. All of that we will talk about, but none of the tactical stuff matters if you don't understand what you're actually doing. And if you don't understand that there's a human on the other side of the computer. People ask me all the time, Molly, I'm about to start running Facebook ads. My business is in the pet market. What do you think I'm going to pay to acquire a customer? And I understand that question and I appreciate it. But that question is really hard to answer because when it comes down to it, I can't calculate how many humans are actually going to pull out their credit card and put it into an order form, right? We can't. We can try to predict that, but we can't force humans to take an action, right? There's not robots on the other side of these ads just buying your stuff because you ran a good Facebook ad, right? So although the button clicking is super important, and we'll talk about that, you have to keep in mind H to H, human to human, right? With your ads, your job is to connect to the people on the other side of that screen. And you also need to remember that media buying is a power that can be used for bad if you choose, right? You have a lot of power as a media buyer. You're putting messages out into the world. So make sure those are messages and products and service that you feel good about inside and that you feel aligned with, because it will make you a way better media buyer. So media buyers bring new life to business, right? I kind of went on a Molly tangent. You know the definition of a media buyer, but what do? Well, we bring new life to business, right? A business can get very stagnant if they aren't acquiring new customers and attention at all times. So media buyers, this is our job, right? How do we bring new blood and new life into a business? So who else are we? So we are marketers, right? A media buyer is just a niche position in the realm of marketing, but deep down, we are marketers. We are psychologists. Keep this in mind. A lot of what you're going to learn in this course is actually psychology. And the more that I study psychology and how people work, the better I am at media buying, right? Because what are we doing? We're trying to get a person to take an action, right? So if you understand the psychology behind that, it'll make you a way better media buyer. We are also researchers. So especially when we're creating our campaign assets and we're figuring out the avatars and the targeting and the copy, you're gonna see that most of what I'm doing is actually researching. I tell people all the time, people ask me what I do. Sometimes I say I'm a Facebook detective because a lot of what we're doing in media buying is researching, trying to learn more about a market, trying to learn why they take an action, what they're interested in, where they're hanging out, what their pain points are, what they ate for breakfast this morning, right? We are empaths. That's really important. If you can tap into that empathetic side of yourself that can read how other people feel or, tune into how they might feel, media buying will be a lot easier for you because of the psychology behind this. But I've definitely noticed that the best media buyers are very empathetic, right? And they can relate to how the market that they're targeting is feeling and how they're going to react. As I said, we are humans connecting other humans, right? Plain and simple, that is our job, to be the role between the product, the service, the message, and the people that need to hear that message or that would benefit from that product or service. As we go through all of the tactical information in this course, please do not forget the human aspect of this, because it is so, so important. And then last but not least, we are communicators. So I noticed that the more that I work on my communication skills as a human and trying to get a message across clearly to another human, the better I become at media buying, because that's really what you're doing. You're communicating a message, a benefit of a product or service to a group of people. So I just wanted to go through this list because I wanted you to understand really what you should be tapping into inside of yourself so that you can become a better media buyer, right? And a lot of that is realizing that this is psychology. Empathy helps, and this is all about human to human. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope it cleared up any questions that you have about what paid traffic is, the difference between organic, paid, the role that it plays in business, and most importantly, who are we as digital media buyers? So let's do this. Woo! Excited for you to be here as always, and we will see you in the next video.